Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining another episode of the CSM Practice Podcast. And today I'm going to host Barry Klein, who's the VP of Client Success at a company called Talroo. He manages large CS team, 17 people is pretty large, but he comes in with an interesting story about implementing digital CS with technology. And I want to unfold his story as he goes through this because I think there's a lot of lessons learned and things that we can take away for our own companies and situations. And so with that, Barry, welcome to our show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very flattered to be your guest.
Why did this all start and when did you start thinking about digital CS?
Talroo is in the job advertising business. We are a talent matching platform focused primarily on frontline and essential workers who, especially during and after the pandemic, we all came to appreciate how important frontline and essential workers are. The journey to digital CS grew out of the nature of the customers that we were finding ourselves pursuing and closing in the wake of the pandemic. Starting in 2021, once everyone shook off the pandemic and then going into 2022, we were in a hyper growth mode for what we will call internally our direct retail customers, reaching out to employers and having them work directly with us. The legacy of my company, Talroo, is in the world of job boards, job aggregation, and with relationships with fabulous advertising agencies who represent us. But we historically had been one level removed from the actual employer. The agency represented us. The job board was sending us jobs. We didn't know the people on the other end, the recruiters on the other end who were actually pursuing talent. We started in 2020 to prepare for it. And then in 2021 and 2, we accelerated our growth. It was an exciting time because everyone will remember no one could find enough restaurant workers. No one could find enough stockers for the supermarkets. No one could find enough warehouse workers. So we were in great demand. And as a result, the world was our oyster. But the challenge was that not every customer was right for us. One of the things that I often say to our newest employees, and it's the way I would explain what we do for a living to my mother, what we do is very easy. We advertise jobs. It's the how that is very different. And we need customers who are sophisticated enough to understand that how, because we're not a set it and forget it solution. We're in it for the long haul. We're in it for lifetime value. There are some folks in our space who tout that within 48 hours, you're going to have a certain number of qualified candidates. And they set a bar that says it's going to be immediate. Well, candidly, we're not. We get better over time. And you need the right kind of customer who's patient, who participates, and who is a partner in the truest sense of the word. But of course, in the go-go days of 2022, we would call someone and they could often be, and I don't mean to diminish the time and effort that our sales team would put on, but it could be, where do I sign? I need help right now. And that led us down a journey where you look at the customer base and did we have the right people? And were we efficiently supporting them? That started to cause us to look at how we went about what we did, the right level of service for each customer, treating them individually, but treating them at scale.
At that time, how many CSMs do you have and approximately how many customers? Was it high touch at that point?
We grew from about the size that the team is today, and again, supporting multiple verticals. But if I look at the team that was supporting this new channel of direct customers, it was 5 or 7 people. It grew to 9 or 10. We were trying to keep our hiring ahead of the curve, anticipating growth. So the team got to, like I said, I think 9 or 10 for our direct retail customers. The only differentiation that we started to put in place early on was sort of a high touch, call it low or medium touch. Some customers, they want to talk to you every day, every week. Other customers, leave me alone. We will schedule something monthly. So we had that delineation, but we had, and I should also add that the other side of the team, we implemented an account management team, which we had not done previously. And that was a huge enhancement to our ability to support our customers. So a more traditional SaaS model, salesperson sells it, account manager runs it day to day, and my team with CS backing it up. So if we had somewhere approaching 10 CSMs, we had 5 or 6 account managers. The raw numbers grew dramatically to the point that we had reached several hundred customers in the 2022 timeframe.
With 9 or 10 CSMs, so what was the ratio and what kind of challenges was the team starting to experience as this growth started to emerge? Obviously, ICP was not there. So what was the big impact on the company at that time that made you think, yeah, we need to do things differently?
Among the challenges were the fact that in our industry, our smaller customers are the most challenging. And it's something that we try to impress upon our salespeople and who we consider to be an ideal customer profile. The smaller the customer, the tougher they are for us.
The more demanding?
They're more demanding. They're less sophisticated from their job advertising point of view. From a human standpoint, I'm very sympathetic because I used to run my own small business, and you appreciate that you're everything, right? If you're a small business person, you're the recruiter, you're the one doing the advertising, you're the one doing the interviewing. And even in a medium-sized business, you can have lots of people wearing so many hats. They're overwhelmed and they don't understand. For us, the how is difficult. You have people who don't have the time and energy to invest in the how. And so questions every day, wanting to tweak their advertising campaigns way too frequently. Folks who might be unhappy who refuse to pay their bill. That kind of thing would upset me because, again, having been a small business owner, I ran lots of different advertising, job searches to find customers. And when something didn't work, I didn't blame the vendor. I just didn't use them again. But in the world we were in, there was this sense of, oh, you didn't perform, I'm not going to pay you. And that's, of course, the exception, not the rule. But it was indicative of a non-ICP, where this is not the right solution for you. And so the smaller customers could kill my team from a time and a morale point of view, and then ultimately churn. So you've done all this time and effort, and you're going to lose them anyway. And what's worse is you know you're going to lose them. You know that it's doomed to fail. That was tough on everybody.
Thinking back, if you haven't implemented a better, more scalable engagement with clients using digital CS, and the company would have continued in the path that it was on 3 years out, what would have been the impact if nothing was changed?
This endeavor to focus on this new vertical, build direct relationships with customers, would have failed miserably, because the scalability and the tools that we've put in place have also been done in the context of answering the very questions, the very issues that we're talking about here. The software and a digital first solution, it's not the software that's making us more successful. It's the processes that we are able to implement, things that we knew we wanted, but how do we do it? I want to create a high touch environment, but I can't physically call you every day, but I sure could automate some emails. Make them personalized, to you, your activity. Here's the next 3-minute video that we'd like you to watch to learn more about our product. So can I use the tools that are available to bring to life the very things that myself and my team wanted to do that we were otherwise doing by hand, conscientiously and enthusiastically, but also sometimes being frustrated because we knew we're never going to make this customer happy. It's going to drain my time. It's going to distract me from other customers who I believe we can be highly successful with. So if we had done nothing, I believe that entire endeavor would have failed.
2 years into it, what are some of the biggest impacts you're seeing by implementing these activity-based customer marketing, if you will, and digital experiences?
Culturally, one of the challenges I had was to convince my colleagues digital first doesn't mean not white glove. And it's a matter of listening to people's concerns. Oh, what we tout is our service. And I proudly tell people that our company, from the senior leadership who align around customer success and lifetime value, down to our frontline CSMs who are part of my team, we're very proud of what we do and we're very good at it. Our 2023 NPS survey staggeringly came in with a 77 as a score. And even our digital first was over 60. So even the folks who were digital first were saying great things about us and were promoters. That makes me proud.
Thinking back, all the stuff that you've done, if you had to pick 3 things that you've done since 2022 that made an impact on NPS, on retention, or an adoption, however you want to think about it, what are the 3 most impactful initiatives that you may want to share today?
Number 1 is an absolute alignment throughout the company, re-examining how we were on the customers to whom we were selling and how we were supporting them. This was not me as the CS vice president fighting with my CEO to say, existing customers are important. We have to take care of them. There's no lack of clarity from the top of our organization about the importance of our customers. We always had that, But putting all of that into the context of working with this new cadre of customers, these new direct retail customers, what did it mean? Because we were struggling. We had this broad range of customers. Should we have been selling to them? Once we did sell to them, could we support them? Are they going to churn anyway? I credit the executive leadership team with taking a 360-degree view of what we could improve upon. Even our engineering and product team said, what can we do in the product? What are we missing? What would make the experience better? What do our customers want that we're not giving them? And especially because it was a new cadre of customers, direct employer is a little different than supporting a job board. So the first thing was we already had the culture, but number one was getting the alignment on looking at things with fresh eyes. Number two, I would say, is it came from number one, is a much tighter alignment with our sales team so that we sold to the right customers and engaging members of my team early and often. More training, more consultation, getting on calls with these prospects, setting us up for success even before a deal was signed. We have a number of things that have to happen for a customer to be successful, and we are dependent upon their engagement and we are dependent upon their technology. So for instance, in our world, applicant tracking systems are incredibly important. If we have an applicant tracking system that is friendly to Talroo, we're pretty good. We can launch quickly and efficiently. But there's so many applicant tracking systems and some of them are difficult to work with. So I want my team on the phone with that customer before they sign. I want to set expectations early so that we're aligned around, hey, this is going to take a few weeks to go live. Here's what we're going to need from you. Here are the questions we know we're going to have. So that alignment in the sales cycle was quite important to set us up for success. And it actually manifested itself also in a deal desk where the sales team and the CS team came together to evaluate deals, not to be the hammer to say no, but to ask questions to help set expectations. So that was wonderful. Number three was an exploration and then ultimate purchase of a customer success platform. We looked at all the players in the industry. It made it a very difficult decision because there's not a bum in the lot for anyone who is looking for a CS platform. These are outstanding software platforms with outstanding service and support, which you would hope. But we ended up contracting with Gainsight. We went live with them in Q2 of 2023, and that gave us the tools that we needed. Going back to digital, now we could do digital first for the right kinds of customers. Now I could do digital plus, I'll call it, for the customers who are still high touch, but who benefit from the very things that any customer would benefit from when it comes to digital. You don't need to interrupt people all the time. Give them the tools at their fingertips to find the right balance between when do they want to talk to you, when do they need to talk to you, when are you sharing information, what can you make them aware of, all of the above.
Okay, let's go into number one. The cross-department alignment. Tell me a little bit about this initiative. What was your main goal and what were some of the steps that you took to just get it started?
One of the more memorable moments was a meeting with our executive leadership team. It was Q4 of 2022, revealed very vulnerably, discussed what was going on under the hood. Were we selling to the right kinds of customers? Why were they churning? Where were we missing the boat? What's most important to them? We've always provided great service, but in our business, you're only as good as your last set of KPIs. Were we making those KPIs? Were the advertising campaigns set up properly to meet those KPIs? So everything from do we have the right product to are we implementing it properly to are we watching it properly? Do we have the right customers? So as I say all that, as you can see, I didn't have to say as the leader of the CS team, oh, this is all my fault and we're going to fix it. One of the great phrases that came out of this was retention begins in discovery. Are we finding the right customers? Are we vetting them? We just don't want to say yes to everybody. When we say right customers, their volume, their sophistication, their appropriateness for our platform, all the way to their technology. Some customers are so hard to work with, to connect to their jobs and to connect to their process, that maybe we need to defer how we work with them. Once we do get them live, are we getting them live efficiently? Are we documenting what we're doing? Are we setting clear expectations? And then that would lead, of course, to the ongoing account management. How often are we meeting with folks? And also another big initiative I should mention as a sidebar is, especially for our account managers, but also for our CS folks, was we had everyone read the Challenger Sale, because we don't want to be doormats. Customer service and success is not, what would you like me to do? What do you need? Sometimes you have to have a tough love conversation. One key example of that is I often think about new customers who come to us in our space. There's Indeed, there's ZipRecruiter, there's Glassdoor. These are fine companies. But if we meet a customer who says they all stink, hate them all, well, I can't help but ask, have you looked in the mirror? Have you thought about your processes? You hate all these vendors. Why would you like me? Because I can't change your application process. What if your application takes 30 minutes online? No one's going to do that. What if it's not mobile friendly? Everyone's on mobile these days. I don't know if your hiring process is any good. Maybe you don't treat people nicely. Having a tough love conversation, which another example of that was one of our account managers did a terrific job. We had an employer who had multiple locations. Most of the locations were doing great. One of them was failing miserably. He pushed hard. He wanted to know why. The recruiter in that location wasn't doing anything, was barely doing his or her job. And you don't like to call someone out for that, but we're not going to take the blame when it's not our fault. And that's a tough conversation to have. We're fine. It's your employee who's undermining not just us, but undermining your success in that location. That's a tough thing to do. But to train everybody up and give them that confidence, that was a huge initiative.
The first thing you've done in cross-functional alignment is just align on what are we trying to solve for and have these critical discussions. What was the outcome? What were some of the initiatives and the changes that were brought about as part of this initiative? So if anybody's listening to this conversation, they say, yeah, maybe they should think about whether they should do that as well in their own organization. What are some of the things that emerged from that initiative?
One thing that pops to mind, and it's one of my least favorite things to do, RACI Charts. The way we've built them and what they stand for is if you look at any given activity and ownership of that activity, that responsibility, who's responsible for it, who's accountable for it, who needs to be communicated with in regards to that. What's the I?
It was consulted with, who should be informed. This is like the epitome of siloism. You don't need to know. We're doing it. We're not telling anybody. And then there's a host of issues. Consulted with is like, okay, maybe you should have asked me first kind of problems. I always get confused between responsible and accountable. Maybe you can explain that better.
Yeah, a little bit of a fudge factor there with accountability and responsibility. Our charts ultimately make sense in that regard, but sometimes you could flip those back and forth.
Yeah, I feel always like the manager is ultimately accountable, but responsible is the person who's actually executing the task.
It's the who's going to get yelled at if it goes wrong. The hard, detailed work of that. That's not easy, but the importance of it, not that we refer back to the charts that much, we do. It's not the ultimate creation of a PowerPoint that has the chart on it, or charts, I should say, for the different steps along the customer journey, but it's the dialogue that it forces.
What was the outcome? You had these amazing dialogues, answered hard questions. At the end of the process, what were some of the changes that actually happened in the organization?
We became much more efficient, and combined with the effort and the investment in a customer success platform, we had become efficient enough that we were able to reduce staff and not miss a beat with CS. And it makes you sad. You hate to depart with employees, and they were all terrific, but we could do the classic more with less.
Just going to clarify for the executives that are listening to this interview. When you say reduce staff, I am hearing you lowered cost to serve and increased productivity. And by the way, reducing staff doesn't mean you let them go necessarily. It could be that you repurpose them for another organization within your own company, but you are able to lower cost to serve and increase profitability.
Yes, that is absolutely true. By having the roles and responsibilities clearly outlined, by having the right kind of support in the platform, not only were we able to be more efficient, job satisfaction improved. People they know what's expected of them. They know what questions to ask. And even today, it's created a clarity that people being people, you have to remind them. And that's why we have managers and leaders, and you have status reports and meetings, and you hold people accountable, because just in the last week or two, leader of our account management team and the leader of who works for me for our CS team doing the implementations, we all had to talk real quick because some members of the account management team were a little bit frustrated because members of the CS team were not as proactive as we would like with helping create the notes in the background and the things that we all agreed should be done before a performance review call. Because one of our goals from an efficiency standpoint is that I don't need two people on a call. One person would suffice. But what that required is that the one person who is going to take that on, they need to be well armed. Not only, so they know their stuff, they know what they do every day, but their counterpart, who they talk to every day from account manager to CS, that counterpart isn't going to be on the call. So it's incumbent upon the counterpart to arm the person who's going to be on the hook there to be talking to the customer. And we had conversations because it reminded everybody who was responsible for what and when, what the expectations were. But it also led to good conversations even for the account manager. There were some individual CS folks who had gotten a little bit behind on doing such things. Because let's face it, you see a performance review call is coming up on a Friday. It's just an entry in the calendar. You can kind of become blind to it. So there's nothing to stop the account manager from sending a message in Slack. Hey, remember we have this call coming up. Let's not be so highfalutin. Everyone has to be perfect all the time. Talk to each other. Build on the collaboration that we've created so that communication flows and we look out for each other. And having the RACI charts and having the well-defined responsibilities kind of create that true north that we can then go back to when the inevitable little glitches occur.
You talked earlier about there were three things that you were doing. One was the in general cross-functional collaboration, but the other one that you focused on was the collaboration with sales. I assume also account management as it being a new role. A couple of initiatives that I wrote down is having a Slack channel, so transparency, increasing communication, and the RACI, of course, I'm sure you did it with the sales and account managers. What are some of the changes you implemented in the way that the CS team works with either sales for new deals or with account managers? Can you kind of share maybe 2 or 3 big initiatives and changes you've done in the way that they worked with them?
The more efficient use of everyone's time. And so this revelation that, do we really need 2, 3 people on every performance review call that we have? Sometimes you do. Sometimes it's a quarterly business review. If it's an annual business review, I might want to be there. But day to day, when we're doing what, for lack of a better term, we might call a check-in call, can't we just have one person and have them well armed? And the other thing that one person needs to then remember is don't start solving problems on the call because your counterpart isn't there. So your job becomes to say, I understand what's going on. I have some ideas. But let me check, and the customer knows who the counterpart is. They're just not there on the call. So let me go check with Mary, and we'll get back to you later today with some ideas for that problem. The problem is when you're dealing with conscientious people, they want to start to solve the problem right there. They want the customer to be happy. And so training and aligning around, let's stay calm, let's always own the agenda, and let's make sure that we're making efficient use of people's time, our own time. And of course, the customers to be efficient there.
You mentioned, so was training part of the initiative? And if so, how did you approach it?
Not as efficiently from a training standpoint as I would like. One of the things that I think we all experienced during the pandemic was the 2 biggest challenges I had were ongoing training, ramping up new employees when no one's in the same room. That was a challenge. There were the shared readings, things like the Challenger sale and the book clubs that resulted with that. We would send DoorDash credits to everybody and say at noon, we're meeting, get your lunch, and we're going to talk about the book. I was very pleased the company invested in Gong and looked at other solutions as well. So now we can listen to the calls. Now I can listen and say, did you use what we discussed in that lunch and learn when we read that book? Let's do it in real time. And the other thing, Rick, that comes to mind is I had sales directors listening to existing customer calls. I will listen to sales calls, and everyone's feedback is welcome. And I've had other leaders within the company to say, hey, I have feedback for so-and-so. Do you mind if I call them? No, absolutely not. Let's all talk. Let's make sure we're on the same page. So having those calls recorded to reinforce the behavior that we want and all the lovely tools that are now available to transcribe and use AI to see what was discussed, all of that is helping as well. But to train and then hold accountable the entire team for the very things that we were training on. The tools came together very nicely. And then you add a layer with Salesforce, you add a layer with Gainsight, and now you've got good record keeping, you've got good institutional knowledge, and you're watching the behaviors. We had a few account managers, and as someone who talks too much, you could look at through Gong and other tools, you can say, who's doing all the talking in a call? And we were able to say to some of our people, hey, look at this. You talk 80% of the time. Let's get that down to 25. And real tangible. The tools came together with the processes very, very nicely.
What were some of the outcomes you've seen after you've made all these investments in tools, in coaching, in optimizing processes and holding people accountable to that?
One of my favorite charts that we track internally shows the average length of time that a customer has stayed with us before they do depart. But what has been consistent for the last year, quarter over quarter, is that those customers who are leaving us are staying longer, and there are fewer of them leaving. That is very gratifying. And so on this one chart, the number of accounts leaving is going down and to the right, and how long they're staying is going up and to the right.
So the NPS went up, which is awesome.
Yes, our NPS was gratifying. We always scored well. We do the survey annually, and we're going to start peppering in more day-to-day, real-time customer sat surveys. But the NPS is always a big initiative. We've always scored over 50 for the last 3 years or so. But to come in over 70 was incredibly gratifying. The commentary is what I love because it's people talking about people. We had a product advisory council that we formed with some of our most engaged direct customers. We actually did the meeting out in Napa Valley, which was terrific. We got these core customers away with our product team, with my team, with our account manager team, just the leadership to have a good 48 hours to talk. And what I was struck by, and I've shared it internally with a lot of folks, say, well, what do we do for a living? What's the point? And what I was struck by sitting with these individuals and listening to the successes and their challenges, I said to my team when we got back, we make these people's lives better in a small way. Everyone goes to work. Can't they just enjoy their job a little bit more? Can't they have one less thing that they have to stress about? And that's what I took away from this, which is when we're at our best and we're partnered with the right customers who want to partner with us and who invest of themselves, we actually make their quality of life better in our own little way, especially in a business where we're helping people find jobs. We're helping people who never have heard of us because of the way our system works. They don't know that Talroo helped them find the job, but we're helping people find jobs and we're helping the people responsible for hiring them have a better day.
I want to dedicate some time to the digital CS, which was, I thought would be the main dish for today's conversation, but you had so many things to share that how critical it is to align on cross-functional collaboration, double click on customer feedback in order to get NPS and customer sentiment high, reduce churn, and increase loyalty. But let's talk about digital CS because you had an extraordinary outcome around that, which is the NPS for your lower cohort of clients increased. So I want you to kind of maybe take a pause and think about what are the 3-4 initiatives that you've done in the last year or so since you purchased and invested in technology for your customer success team that made a difference in elevating the NPS score for that cohort?
Properly segmenting our customers who belonged in that tech touch cohort for all the right reasons. Not necessarily, oh, they're small, they're big, but which customers will receive the focus of digital first or tech touch effort.
It almost sounds, Barry, like what you have applied. We don't call that proper segmentation. We call it dynamic segmentation, which means, okay, who even prefers to have less touch, even though they're big? And it takes that into account. Or who needs that higher touch? Is that what you've done? Does that resonate as what you meant by this? Yeah,
it does. Yeah, certainly customers' existing revenue to the company, a huge factor. But what's the growth potential? What communication pattern would they like? Are we bothering them by trying to get them on the phone? So yes, it is a thoughtful, flexible assignment of who falls into which bucket.
Yeah, we had a whole session with Mike Sasaki around that topic specifically a while back. So if anybody's listening to this interview, go check that out if you want to learn more on how to do this. And this is something that's much easier to do when you have a customer success platform, is it not?
Absolutely. And that actually was going to be exactly my next point. Great minds thinking alike. There is no one listening to us today who isn't using email to communicate with their customers. And you're probably trying to automate some of those emails. But for instance, one of our challenges, we're early in the implementation cycle, and we know that a customer's applicant tracking system is so important to us. We had a generic email that we would send out about, hey, here are the things we're going to need to know about your ATS. It revealed nothing about the fact that we already knew a lot about your ATS, and we could ask better questions, and we could send a better email. And working with the Gainsight platform, and I'm fortunate to have an administrator, got into it with the team and figured out how to send the right email message personalized to the right customer so that they knew that we know what we're talking about. And oh, by the way, it came from the person you're going to meet when you get on your onboarding call. So all those things started to come together to be able to make the automated be personal. because automated shouldn't insult me. I know a lot about you. I just didn't sit there and type it in. I pulled it from a system and I crafted what was a highly personalized email. I just didn't type it in from scratch.
Can I ask, what are some of the things that you chose to personalize? I assume it's data you already have in the system somehow. Did you start thinking about customized fields that you've never had before, or the way you were capturing? Can you give us some examples?
We live and breathe on our data, and we are a very good company from a data point of view. So then you try to figure out, what the heck do you want to communicate? What do you want to pull? How do you pull it? We have a very sophisticated environment with Snowflake, with our own data warehouse. We use Sigma internally. So there's a lot of tools and there's a lot of data floating around. One thing that became an early focus was, how do I help onboard an appropriately designated digital first customer without having to get them on a call? Often small business, they don't want to spend the time on a call. So how do I craft the right kind of email or series of emails to take them along that journey? So it was a matter of creating some short videos, more detailed instructions, a few PDFs, and say, here's what we need you to do. Then they check back and they say they've done it. Then the day we go live, with the click of a button, an automated message gets delivered to that customer. You are now live. Your budget is set for this. We have this many jobs. A recap. Just as if you were on a call with them, you would send good notes to say, here's what we discussed. And so being able to capture all of that, which isn't data oriented, of course there's data elements, but it's the experience. On the data side, we've actually crafted something, making sure that your customers are continuing to invest with you. The nature of our business, doing job advertising, we become budget bound. And if we run out of budget, we can't keep advertising your jobs. And when we approach customers for more budget, we like to think we do it from the point of view of having earned the right to ask for more. We're not saying spend more with us. We're saying invest more with us. If you liked the results that you're seeing, wouldn't you want more of them? And we're happy to try to deliver that. So how do you gently prod a customer and not lose their trust and not have them think you're just being greedy? But how do you reach out to them and say, hey, we can do more for you? Well, what used to happen was an automated email would go out from the system that would be completely anonymous, like, hi, Barry, you're out of budget. Would you like to add more? Click here to talk to somebody. But it was just ASCII text, very bland, very 2015. Now, what we've been able to build through our platform is a personalized email that says, looks like your jobs are doing great this month. We're approaching a point where we might run out of budget. Here's your performance statistics through the month. Here's how much more budget we think we can accommodate to keep you live through the end of the month, because our new budgets kick in at the beginning of every month. But oh, by the way, here's how much we would recommend you actually invest, because we can do more for you. So the first data point is just to keep the run rate going. So whatever you're spending per day, can you give us more of that for the next 10 days and we'll keep your run rate going? That's fine. But what we also have an opportunity to do is say, psst, we can do more for you. So here's a suggested budget for the rest of the month. And oh, by the way, while we're talking about it, here's a suggested budget for next month, because we can do more for you. Doesn't mean we're going to get it. We're not going to be pushy about it. But through this cadence of emails, we're getting our customers' attention. And then there's a big old button. What would you like to do? I'd like to do nothing. Okay, that feedback is terrific. I'd like to speak to my account manager. That's a great one too. Or, yes, I would like to add this exact amount of budget. Please do that for me.
So it's a survey?
It is presented internally. You would know it as a survey, yes.
And you can actually include one question embedded in the email. And so they just need to click on the right option and that takes them to that survey. Brilliant. This is great.
We launched that a few months ago. If you look at the monthly responses to it and you look at the potential run rate of increased revenue, that's a very lucrative email to send that covers the cost of the software platform from which it's coming. And we're not insulting anybody and we're not being rude. We're just sharing data.
Everyone, if you love this interview with Barry, please give it a like. Go ahead and connect with him on LinkedIn. Putting more questions on this video. If you ask questions here, everybody can see it, and then I'll ping Barry to actually respond online. But if you wanted to do it in private, Barry's more than happy to connect with you, I'm sure.
Yes, quite.
And with that, it's a wrap. Big love from me. I'll see you on the next video.